Number one is the evacuation procedure, and I don't think we've got any people that don't know it, so don't think there's any necessity to read that out, unless anybody particularly wants me to. Item number two is apologies.
Apologies from Councillor Foos and Councillor Jones is her substitute.
Thank you. Item number three is disclosable pecuniary and non-pecuniary interests. Item number four is public participation.
No questions submitted.
Item number five is the minutes of the meeting of the Executive Board held on the 23rd of March of this year.
Move it, John.
And second, Councillor Simmons. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item number six is the Local Government and Social Care Ombudsman Annual Review 2025-26. This is the annual report from the Ombudsman regarding complaints made against the Council. Members will note that 6 complaints were considered last year, with none of them being held. Complaints to the Council continue to increase, as do compliments. Members are asked to note the report and raise any further questions they may have regarding the report. So really, you're asking a question, or you voting in favour?
Question.
Okay.
Just while we're talking about complaints, obviously as members we receive a copy of a complaint from residents. We don't always get to find out the outcome. Obviously sometimes we'll contact them. Is it possible to have the outcome of the complaint?
Through you, Chair. I mean, members' hands, whatever you want. I mean, we have raised some concerns internally around complaints that involve employee details, because in theory that could be the start of a disciplinary if it's upheld. But we don't want to take away anything else. So it's whether you want the thing at the start or you'd rather see the outcome at the end, so that you're not left in that sort of in between world, not quite knowing what happened or what is happening to it. I mean, you had whatever you would find useful. It's even more logical to me to give you everything at the end, so you can see both the complaint and our response, rather than a complaint without a response. But we could keep with the current system and add the outcome as well if you want. So whatever members will find helpful.
I think I'd prefer to have a current system plus. Yeah.
But,
and then you've got the
And Councillor Rickle.
Yeah, can I just ask, perhaps in the grand scheme of things, it's not too bad, but is it the app, do you think, that's made the easy nature of people being able to access the way of being able to complain or to compliment? Has that had an impact at all?
through you, Chair, I mean, there's probably a number of factors. I think the country is slightly less rested than it was previously, perhaps. I think we're also picking up on them a bit more systematically than we have before. Yes, I mean, it could be access. There's a number of things such as whattheyknow.com and Find My Street and all those sorts of things. So yeah, there'll be a number of factors.
Councillor Simpson.
Thanks, John. Some of this is a rehash of what I said on this report last year, I think. So, for example, the Building Control Service has no complaints, requests for service or complaint. But how would we know? Because that was dealt with almost entirely somewhere else. Enforcement has no complaints or complaints, but 8 requests for service. Struggling with that one. And I think to an extent that probably depends upon how we define complaint. But I'm certainly, as the planning chairman, aware of complaints about enforcement. So just slightly wary with some of these. A, because we don't control that service anymore. And I'm sure there are complaints just like somewhere else. And some where maybe, you know, I'm perhaps being generous in my definition of complaint, but I know of some. And thirdly, I get confused between request for service and a freedom of information request. And I think freedom of information request quite often ties very much into the area of complaint or concern. I'm not saying everybody that requests information has a complaint in mind, but I think it's in the same category. So I think it would be quite interesting to see that alongside complaints and compliments.
So details of FOI requests.
Not just the numbers. I don't really want to know.
Yeah.
You know, because that will take forever. But notwithstanding all of that, I think given the size and scale of the authority to have 161 complaints, matched almost, well, 10 short, but 151 compliments is a pretty fair testament. And taking that in line with the survey that we had a year, 2 years ago, saying how many members, the proportion of residents who are satisfied with the authority. Personally, I think even though there's been a bit of an increase, this is giving us a fairly decent bit of health. So, I'd like to compliment our staff on delivering the service which people are by and large content with.
Thank you very much. I think you're right. I would be interested to see the same report at the county. Councillor Simmons.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to comment actually around the housing one particularly, because actively from a housing task and finish group, we have been actively encouraging and asking for engagement so that the Ombudsman doesn't look favourably upon you if you don't have any issues, particularly I don't believe that. And so we've talked and made it a lot easier, and as Councillor Simpson commented on, have we, or how have we got so many more complaints? But Councillor Ridley actually about ease of access. We have made it a lot easier for people to give their feedback, because feedback is what we want, so we can act on it. And actually, if you look, the compliments are greater as well. So I think from an authority point of view, we want that so we can be better. So I don't see it's a bad thing.
Well, one of the things the Housing Ombudsman has asked us particularly to do is to raise awareness of the various complaints process for our tenants, but also private tenants as well. And you've got things like Airweb's law and various other regulatory improvements. Yeah, it's part and parcel of it. So yeah, I think that's very fair.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? So I'll remove that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item number 7 is the Mayor's Awards for Voluntary Service. So during the term of every council, awards are made to recognise the exceptional voluntary service that takes place across the borough. It is suggested that further awards are made this civic year, and members are also asked to consider further awards of Freeman of the Borough status, which are awarded for eminent service to the borough. Members are asked to send nominations to the Chief Exec by the 31st of July. They are asked to provide nominations to the member panel, the options for which are set out in the report.
Happy to move that.
Got a question?
Yeah, it was a request for more information rather.
Oh, okay.
Is that it was just on point 3.6 about the makeup of the panel. I wasn't quite sure. It's just my ignorance, I presume, but the thing about where it was going to be the Jordan Independence because of the mayor's position, I didn't quite follow that. However, as Reform actually aren't even here to put their case on that particular one, I'm not quite sure it's even an issue.
So, Chair, what we've said is our normal standard task and finish group is a 10, which allows your group plus one of the others. And if you're having to choose between one of the others, so to refer to you like that, given it's the Mayor's Award and the Mayor is from Dublin Independence, that seemed to me, if I still mind, at least logical. But it's not the only way you can do it. But if you're going to give some Mayor's Awards, why not involve the Mayor?
Sit at the back and heckle.
So I think Councillor Stewart is moving a 10-member panel with Dawn Independent as the 10th member.
Yeah. Okay. We'd like to stick. Councillor Stewart, sorry. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Stewart has helpfully given me an opportunity, I hope, to a very slim peg upon which I another hook, given that we're talking about party balance and membership of boards. And I think we're all aware that the government is proposing a maximum number of members on planning and development board, which is less than we have at the minute. I'm generally hoping that the chief executive is nodding, saying, yes, I am looking at that. We are working it through in consultation with all the groups on the council, because we're going to have to find less people who want to, well, I'm sure we won't find it difficulty but there will be probably an oversubscribed number of volunteers who wish to retire, but that will have significant implications for party balance on all of the other boards.
Absolutely, we were discussing it just before you came in. So we'll bring something to the September exec, which will then have to go to council because it's a constitutional arrangement, and we'll consult on that again.
Sorry, Chairman, sorry, which council would that go to then?
So that'd be is it 23rd of September?
Because we've got to get it done by October.
Yeah, that's right. And my colleague to my left, to my right, is saying that we've also got a requirement to put an audit committee in there as a result of the 2026 English Devolution and Community something or other Act. So we need an audit committee, which I think has an independent person on it as well. So both of those exactly in September.
I have been studiously independent, certainly my life.
I think you. I think Councillor Simpson, it's an opportune moment to bring it up, and I've spoken to the chief executive about that, because to my mind, constitution of boards and all the rest is laid down in statute, is it not, in the 1974 Local Government Act? So for a government to say, well, you're now, sure, to my mind, as a simplistic number cruncher, you've got to change the act, haven't you? You can't just pick and choose bits of the act we want to follow and what we don't. So I'm not sure whether it's actually legal what they're asking us to do, is it? Laura?
Well, I think within the law that says you have to go down to 11, is it? Whether it's 13, sorry. We'll have to apply, I think it's 89 now, but it's neither here nor there. So we have to apply the law as best we can. But it will be the recent January edges because it work quite divided.
Yeah.
It is a product, I have to say, of officials increasingly who don't know local government writing local government laws. We had it with the Licensing Act, which is why we've got that slightly strange arrangement of having two when one would do, because it was written by people who didn't know the 7489 what it is Act. And the concern is that sometimes some of the local reorganisation stuff also looks like that as well. But there we go. Nothing will change, even if that's broadcast.
Okay, thank you. So back to the Mayor's Awards and Forestry Service. I'll move that from the chair, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item number 8 is the Corporate Repair Challenge. You'll recall that the Corporate Repair Challenge the LGA undertook back in 2024. Members also recall that the virtual revisit took place earlier this year, and this report updates members with the LGA's findings. As with the initial visit, the LGA findings are overall positive, and they note the considerable progress the council is making in respect of its key projects and governance arrangements. And the action plan has been updated to reflect the latest report, and members have asked to note the LGA's report and the updated action plan. Anybody got any questions? Councillor Barnes.
Yeah, I think the first thing is slight frustration that it's taken this long, because the report's dated 27th of January and the action plan is just dated 2026, but it also reads like it was written in January as well, because it refers to stuff happening in February in the future. So we've had several executive boards since then, and I'm not quite sure why it's taken nearly 5 months to get to us. That's the first frustration. But even within it, I've got quite a long list. I have prepared an amendment actually, because I think the action plan could do with being expanded on a number of areas. I'm not sure I printed out enough copies, but I will give one to you.
Thank you very much.
Do you want to pass those around and see if you can make them go as far as you can? I'm not sure there's enough for everyone.
You got your back there.
It's all right.
Just one last thing, secretary, could I do with the first one, which is, it's a frustration of mine, it's dated January, but I didn't receive it until the 5th of March, which was too close really to the March deadline. So this is the first executive week that have come, unless I turn it around within about 3 days. So yeah, I take your point.
That's okay. I mean, the action plan, when was that updated?
That was
to say, it talks about stuff in February in the future.
That was updated in preparation for this report. So if there's some grammatical errors around February being in the future, that's my drafting. Well, it being done in that point. Didn't get it until the 5th of March, so it wouldn't be started doing that until after that. So if you detail those here, we can go back and look at that. But
I think one of
that's the reason.
as the chief executive said, one big frustration is that the LGA peers seem to have dated it when they were meant to have sent it, but then so it looks like they've been efficient. But as I say, I didn't receive it until 2 months after we were meant to have received it. As we did with their initial report, when they first came in 2024, they said we were going to hear within, I think it was meant to be about a month, but we didn't hear for several months. Frustrating is, yeah, that's the right word.
I take that point, but I think it would have been helpful if the action plan has got a date on it, and if there was stuff that was due to have taken place in the past that it had a date on it, because there's a number of items like that that don't appear to be. No, the first. I mean, I don't know if you want me to read all of this out, but everyone.
Has everybody got sight of the?
Okay, I won't read the whole thing then. But yeah, the gist of it is to make sure that it does come back to us on a fairly regular basis. There's a number of recommendations in there that, from reading the action plan, doesn't read to me like there's any real action that addresses the recommendation. And it may be that we don't need to do anything, but if we don't need an action, I'd expect to see some justification as to why we don't need an action. And there's a number of things in there where there just isn't a response to my reading of it anyway. There's a couple of things that are vague. Under recommendation 2, there's something about a quarterly golden triangle meeting, which I've no idea what that is or what it's aiming to achieve. That could do with clarifying. What else? There's a couple of things which are mentioned within the LGA report that it reads that we told them we were going to do things like cybersecurity training. It says in the LGA report that it's going to be done in the next 3 months. Don't know when that, whenever that was dated, I don't know, but that hasn't been done. But there's no action for it either, so we could do with an action in there with a time scale if we are going to do it. Is there anything else? One of the other points I was going to raise, the internal audit working group, which sits under resources, it's not met for a good while now. It's only met twice. We've not actually really done a great deal. I don't know if that's planning on meeting soon, but that was one of the key responses, and it doesn't really seem to be functioning right now.
Through Joe, we what we said with the internal work party is that we bring reports when obviously there's something to bring. So the next report that's coming to resources will be the annual report for 25/6, which we'll bring to a meeting prior to resources in July. So that's the next substantive piece of work that needs to come to the internal working party. So we'll set a meeting up for that prior to the July resources.
The other key thing I wanted to, I mean, there's an action in there about which one it is now. Recommendation 8 around considering an environment that better supports members to fulfil their role. I mean, I'm not the only one that's raised issues with these iPads are practically not fit for purpose. And I can't do anything other than read my email on it, really. I end up having to resort to personal laptops to do anything that isn't confidential. And I know you've been trialing something with some of the board leaders. Well, it's described as a trial in here. Do we know what the outcome of that trial is? Is it going to be expanded or not? And if not, what can we do to make these iPads fit for purpose? Because right now they're not. And it's been raised multiple times and nothing changes. And also Microsoft 365. There's been multiple occasions where officers have tried to share documents on Microsoft 365 or, polls or things, and it just doesn't work.
Okay. Through you, Chair. Just want to address the point about hardware, and I'll do the software.
Through you, Chair. So we have leaders group have all been offered laptops, and then the decision we made was to offer planning board laptops because of the planning papers being so chunky. So colleagues are working on that at the moment, and then we'll be offering. Our intention is to offer all members laptops. Feedback we've had from the laptops rollout has been really positive. You can, by all means, keep the iPads. You just want to check your emails and things like that. So we won't be taking them away from you unless you no longer wish to use them. So that's the intention.
I think the point was this is meant to be an action plan around that, though, and there isn't really anything that addresses what actions are going to be taken.
Through you, Chair. So in terms of then both the Microsoft 365 and other software, so we are undertaking a piece of work. It does need building into the action plan. We're undertaking a piece of work with an external provider around IT strategy and roadmap for delivering IT up to the point of LGR. We've also recently upped our licensing with Microsoft to E5 from E3. There will be a suite of training which comes free with that, which is around things like Copilot, but also the 365 suites, which will be delivered to both officers and members. Something that's going and coming out to management team to discuss some of the timing of that, and that will be, that is imminent, so that will be in the next.
But there's also some conflict that must be needed because stuff just doesn't work. It's not training, it doesn't work.
And that's what's being dealt with as part of the NTEC work. So NTEC are the company that are looking at the strategy and the roadmap. There is a known non-compatibility between AVD and Teams, and that will be addressed through the work that they're doing, but it will need an infrastructure ask. So in July, we'll be bringing an ask to exec board to deal with some immediate priorities and, if you like, kind of the low-hanging fruit, which we can do immediately, and then a longer, up to 18 months ask in terms of systems and infrastructure. So we know that we've got issues with the network, and we know that we need to resolve those issues, but they need to be put into a structured plan, and they need to be resourced, and that is coming. So, as I say, the July exec board will have a report. We'll have the strategy. We'll have the roadmap, and we'll have, as I say, a kind of capital ask to cover off a number of those things. I think in terms of laptops, we can have a discussion about rolling that out quicker. And certainly, if members are struggling, then it's a case of please let us know, because we are, say, rolling out where we think the priorities are in terms of needing those laptops, which the board has been identified because it's bigger numbers of documents and papers, and I agree. I will say this: an iPad is something that I play on at home. It's not something that I've ever thought is a business piece of kit and equipment. And I think the NTEC work will agree with that, but we need a plan to be able to roll it out and, as I say, to resource it to be able to do it. So we've found and got some resources through what we've already got in the capital programme, and that's been rolled out and started to roll out to to members, but we want to trial it and make sure it works first before we roll it out further.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think the frustration here is that we've got a recommendation to do something on this, and the only response we've got is something about a trial of that laptop for a couple of users, and that's the only action on there.
Check out some more general comments. So in terms of we've dealt with the dates. I haven't had explained to me in quite such terms that the iPads are not fit for purpose. I've heard that there are some issues with it. That's the first time
I'd take,
well,
sorry, I'll let you respond.
well, yeah. So what I wasn't disputing that. What I was saying is that we'll have a conversation in the light of that comment, that it's not just there are some issues with it and we might get a better solution to I cannot do any work on it. We'll have a look at that and see if we can expedite the protocol around laptops, if that's the position we're in. In terms of the recommendations, the LGA report sets out the recommendations. I haven't gone sort of through the report, picking up comments here and there. If the comments haven't made their way to a recommendation, I've stuck with the recommendation. So not everything that's covered in the LGA report is commented on. It's the recommendations. I'm happy with the recommendation on recommendation 1, that to me says the same thing. That's what that means. In terms of recommendation 2, I can add to the narrative that the Golden Triangle was the LGA for local government and lawyers and local government framework that talks about the Golden Triangle between the chief executive, the section 1 by 1 of the monitoring officer, in one of the key officer monitoring bits. In terms of recommendation 3, when they first came in, our medium-term financial strategy was talking about budget savings plan. Obviously, members will be aware since then there's been a major review of the medium-term financial strategy, because the outturns have always been better, and so therefore, as we currently stand for the current year, there is no need for a saving.
I think my point there is there is a recommendation, and that's a justification. That should be an action plan as to why we haven't got an action.
Well, okay, but I'm not assuming that members have no prior knowledge of the organisation. If it needs explaining, I can put it in there. But obviously, members have, as it says, reviewed that, and the strategy comes forward every time. So
But these should be publicly readable documents as well. We shouldn't assume knowledge.
well, okay. People can look at that. We can. I can add that to the narrative then, if need be. I think we can add IT requirements to action 8, so not just member development, but IT requirements. And in terms of action 9, that is the action. The action was that the LGA team didn't think we engaged with partners. Now, I don't think we particularly agreed with that for the reasons set out. And some of the feedback we got, particularly through the LGR process, shows that we do recommend police and health. And so the action is to continue to do what we're doing. Now, I don't know how I can expand that, because
Well, I think it is more of a comment that you don't think there is anything. I mean, it doesn't, to my reading, it doesn't respond to the recommendation. There's a recommendation to do something, and we're not saying we don't think we need to. We're just saying we're not going to do anything.
no, well, I didn't say we didn't need to do anything. I said we didn't agree. We didn't agree with the suggestion that we weren't.
I think similar to the previous one, and I think I just expect a bit more narrative as to why we don't think we need to do anything.
Okay. You'll have to help me then with what narrative additional.
Well, I mean, what you said makes sense. It's just not.
That's what I put. I mean,
That's, yeah, I was going to say that's in,
that's the one I don't agree. I can't.
You know,
I'll help with.
recommendation 9 says about engaging key partners, blah blah, and then the action is we will continue to engage with key partners across Warwickshire, including town, parish councils, principal councils in Warwickshire, etc., the police, health. So we're already doing, so we're going to continue doing that. So the action is to continue doing what we're already doing. And this was, I guess, I'll agree with this, Stuart, this was the frustration a lot of the time with LGA, because they didn't, or the PITs, it's because they didn't seem to grasp quite a lot of what we were already doing. So, you know, they became confused over scrutiny of budget, for instance, because we haven't got an audit committee. And as we said well, at least, I mean, I definitely told them on several occasions, no, we haven't got an audit committee, but we have got budget is scrutinised by resources, executive, and then ultimately full council. So, you know, the fact that we haven't got a separate audit committee is irrelevant. We don't, you know, I know we've got to have them now, but there was a basic, because if you fall outside the box, the LGA, they don't seem to be able to quite grasp anything else, because they're looking for every council, every authority to fall inside their box so they can tick their little tick boxes. And if you don't, well, then their sort of eyes seem to glaze over. They become very confused, and then call you, I think aggressive and rude, because I'm trying to get my point across bluntly, saying no, it's not me that doesn't understand, it's you. So go away and think about it. So it's frustrating on a whole part, not least and I refer you to the comments I made right at the beginning, that, you know, they date the report when they were meant to send it and then send it some 2-3 months later. It's inefficient. So frankly, if I'm going to be blunt and honest, I don't really care what the LGA says, because we're doing what, you know, they picked up on a lot. The stuff where we say we're weak, we knew we were already weak because we've done our self-evaluation and we knew we were weak, and we've already put a lot of measures in place to address those weaknesses. So our stuff is because they don't understand the way this, and we're not unique, but they don't understand the way this authority works. Councillor Stewart, that might have been a bit blunt, but you know me.
Wasn't aggressive or rude though. The I wonder whether the key point in 3.9 is systematic. Is this that, yeah, I'm quite happy to believe that we are doing what we do and that ticks that particular box. What potentially I think this might show is that that's presently because we've just got good officers and good people who are doing the things in the right way. Should people move on or people change, there doesn't seem to be anything, unless I'm mistaken, something in trying to say, this is how we go about strategically approaching key stakeholders, almost like in an ISO 9000 kind of aspect, so that should anyone come up at some point in the future, they will know how we go about it. And it might be just actually having a document detailing what we do, which would allow us to tick that particular box to enable someone else in the event of an emergency or whatever to be able to pick it up and find out who we approach, when we approach them, and why we approach them. And that achieve everyone's one.
Next on the list, I've got Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to comment about the recommendation 8 about the pilot programme of laptops. One of the questions I think a couple of us had is, are these new? Because they don't hold charge very well. And actually, from a resource point of view, they're not brilliant. So before they're rolled out, can we have a bit of a poll before they're rolled out to anyone else? Because I'm not finding this particularly great. It works well when it's plugged in. I don't know what I do to IT. I don't know what I do to IT because my iPad is performed in much the same way. Like, it's clearly me. So, but I did ask others, and Martin said he was suffering a similar issue. So I thought that for once it might not be me and my poor use of the equipment. The other one is in terms of your own device, as in your own phone. For a long time, I haven't been able to have emails on that because I've got 2 or 3 other email accounts on there. It's that, you know, those things, those barriers now removed with 365 and being able to access SharePoint more effectively. That was that. I'm not for an answer now, but those are things that are some of the barriers I think for us being more effective in what we do. And I think that's across the board, across the chamber really, from comments.
Sure, we can pick those things up.
Yeah.
Part of evaluations.
Yeah, and it's key within the NTEC work, but functionality is key for all for all of our members. So yeah, that will be picked up. And just on the charge thing, I mean, we've got the same laptop, I think, and I commented the other day how well this does hold charge. So whether it's a unit issue or what, I don't know. So, but that's just I mean, it's just
Maybe swap
separate,
swap and
a separate reflection, not entirely helpful, but we'll pick it up.
I was through you, Chair. I was just going to say they are brand new. And they're probably the best laptops we've got in the council. And I've got the same
one then.
I think it may be. I've got the same laptop and mine holds charge, just like Paul's does. So I'm not sure why yours doesn't.
Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. I know I am a bit of an IT heretic. But look, if we are asking members of the planning board in particular, do they want this gizmo or that gizmo? I'd actually quite like to give them the opportunity of having a hard copy, because the planning board can be very difficult with any of these bits of kit. Now, I don't know, but Councillor Simmons, I have never had an issue with the charge on my paper agenda. I found them fully charged right to the end of the meeting and then for some time after. And they always work. I never have difficulty with reception. It's surprising that even the length of planning board, I can still use it throughout the meeting. So I'm quite sure I wasn't the only one who said, given the relative short life of the authority, I didn't want to incur any more cost in having one computer compared to another computer. I got one that still works. But if there was an opportunity to spend some money on having a bit more paper, then I promise I will recycle it and compost it and do everything else with it. But the battery life of my paper works very well. The other thing I was going to say is that the recommendation in front of us is to note the report. I've read Councillor Burnett's amendment, and personally, I don't see much that I disagree with it. It seems very reasonable, and I think if we are trying to get to having more engagement with this, given that we're only noting this report, I think for Councillor Burnett, yourself, Chief Executive, to talk about how this might go forward and what we can do, I'll be perfectly relaxed about. Certainly stuff like the action plan being updated more frequently and brought to us more frequently, I don't think is unreasonable. You weren't the only person that noted the thing about a savings plan. I mean, I did ask and was sort of the same answer that you were just given, but fair point. I thought so. Look, I mean, personally, I don't have any particular issue with this, and I'm sure there's got to be a method of us coming together to actually, put them both in a room together and fight it out.
Chair, I go offer. I mean, I think if it's the wish that this comes back every 6 months, I think we can add that to the amendment that is noted and it's reported every 6 months. If Councillor Barnett's happy, I'll try as much as I can to incorporate that into a revised draft and circulate that for your view and perhaps you, Chair, so you can see what's going on. I've explained where that might be easier than others. Perhaps we will then have a conversation about some of the other points where I can't see what the change would be, but most of it can be incorporated, as Councillor Simpson said.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, just picking up on that back, and I agree with Councillor Barnett. It's one of the things I've raised on around the cost saving plan, and based on some other items later on. I'm convinced we're looking at cost savings. So I just think we need to perhaps revisit that and understand that. With regard to the laptops, I think some of it is around kind of how you use it. If you leave it plugged in all the time, then basically that doesn't do the battery a great deal of good. You're meant to charge it, run it all the way down, charge it, run it all the way down. That's not always easy though. I thought we saw I was going to ask, we saw an email recently, I think truly one of your team, talking about if you're having troubles, did you want something else? There's later versions, etc., etc. and I replied, but I never got a response.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, didn't get any response from that. Basically saying, those of you that got them, there's newer versions or something like that, or I can't remember the exact wording of it. But so we've got nothing back from that, so that'd be.
I'll follow that up. I've just been emailing colleagues as you've been talking, so I'll follow that up and come back to you.
But
Yeah.
from a usage perspective, battery bits aside, are significantly better than the iPads. The iPads were, I'm afraid, particularly in planning and large documents, unusable.
Just a couple. So it was on savings plan and to some degree making some assumptions because I wasn't here at the time that peer review was done. But at the time it was done, the budget wasn't in the state that it's in now, and the savings plans were to deliver a balanced budget. So they were there for a specific purpose. That's not to say that we're not looking at efficiencies and savings and the way that we do things now, because we are. The context is different. The level of reserves that we have and the budget that we're delivering this year is very different to what the budget was in previous years. So please don't think that we're not looking to be efficient and looking to make savings where we can make savings, because we are. The context is different because we're not looking to balance the budget with those savings and with that savings.
Councillor Watson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, and I don't doubt that, because I've seen a lot of the good work that's going on. Picking out Councillor Barney's point, if you read the report as is, that particular thing very much glosses over it, and it almost disregards the fact that it doesn't reference it to more balanced budget. It doesn't say those sort of things. I think if you were reading the report in cold like that, we know what's gone on, but you wouldn't necessarily know it from the report.
I think the only other context, Chair, is that this is a report that goes back to the LGA as well, so I'm trying not to be confrontational in terms of saying, well, did you not realise when was it not explained to you when you came back that the context had changed, and we still do agree with your recommendations.
Right, say you're wrong.
Well, I seem obliged to approach things in a slightly different way. So yeah, we can put some detail and show you the travel, and it's a fair point, isn't it? If somebody's coming straight to this document and hasn't had all the background, then they do refer to it. So yeah, that's fine. We can update that.
Do you mean you're going to edit my comments significantly?
I'm sure I can put the flavour across and the meaning. Yes. But yes.
Okay. So I don't see anybody else indicating. So with the amendment as Chief Exec said, I'll move it from the chair. All those in favour? So sorry, seconded by Councillor Barnett. All those in favour? Yeah. As you know, thank you very much. Item number 9 is the pay policy statement. Council is under an annual duty to publish a pay policy statement setting out how salaries are determined and the level of remuneration for senior staff, amongst other details. Members are asked to agree the statement for publication. Councillor Barnett.
Just one minor thing. I did raise this last year and asked if it could be considered when it was updated. The annual essential car user allowance, which is on the last page, what is it? Page 4 of this. I don't understand why it is tiered by engine size, and there's no allowance there for anyone who's got an EV. So I would propose that we scrap that banding. We just have a flat rate.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It's on page 54.
57.
They're HMRC rates, and we use, they're not locally set rates. They're nationally set rates to make them for HMRC.
And how would that could work for EVs?
That's a good question, which I'll take away. I believe so. We use, and our policy is to use HMRC rates, so, and that's, they change their rates, well, infrequently actually, but they have changed their rates this year. For the first time in a number of years, so but I will take that away and have a look.
Can I just ask its review then in light?
Yeah, sure.
Councillor Simmons, were you indicating? Sorry.
I was just going to ask a question about the executive pay. One of the things, obviously, we have to publish pay threshold, pay levels, etc. for certain roles. Is it the salary level or is it the all-up cost? Some of those things have changed in public sector reporting, and actually you have to include pension costs, not NI, but you have to include the pension costs as well. So is that the case for this, or is it because this is just salary?
So, through Chair, this is the pay policy statement. We publish salaries over 50,000 in the accounts, and they are based on the pension included. Yes, pension is added to those before they're put within the statement of accounts.
There's the recommendation, Phil.
And seconded by myself. All those in favour? Thank you. Item number 10 is the minutes of the Safest Subcommittee held on the 24th of March. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chairman. You'll see from the minutes that Councillor Ridley and I were in attendance at this meeting and spoke with the consent of the Chairman on agenda item 18. I'm sure those who were there will remember that there had been a particularly distressing act of violence against a former member of this authority in others. At the time, we were anxious that something should happen. I can't see that in the minutes, but I know that that was one of the particular issues that led to priority number 1 being violence against women and girls. And I'm delighted that that has been carried forward. But I'm not necessarily delighted about, in fact, probably quite the opposite, is that I understand the issue that we raised, and I'm trying hard to be circumspect in what I say, has not been taken forward by the police. I think it's disgraceful. And I would like our Chief Executive to follow up with Warwickshire Police to understand exactly why not and what are they going to do about it, particularly as I understand it, the individual, the perpetrator, has done it before.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Former Councillor Humphreys.
Councillor Ridley.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just add, there was 2 victims. One was a previous member of this council, but also the other lady was a resident of Ballaston. She said she's never ever been frightened in a town before, but she was absolutely terrified, and it has affected her so much that she no longer can come into the town. That is not acceptable in anybody's eyes. So I completely agree that we would like matters to be taken forward and further investigation to be undertaken.
I totally agree, and I know this particular individual is a regular offender, including myself some years ago. Didn't quite get the response he wanted. Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was at that meeting, and I think one of the things that, and the reason I think we're so keen on it being progressed, was actually without the involvement of Councillor Ridley, actually that wouldn't have been progressed. The police actually had no intention of progressing it at all. And it's only Councillor Ridley getting involved and pushing the inspector at the time that we were given assurance something would happen. The fact that nothing has happened or would appear not to have happened is really frustrating.
Sorry, just to go back, the feedback to the victim, or one of the victims, was the fact that she should not have parked in a particular place, and therefore that prompted the harassment and threats of violence that the 2 women received, which is absolutely ridiculous. So,
Yeah, without wishing to go, prolong this. I mean, that is the point. That's what this person has the hang up about and attacks people. But as I pointed out to him, well, you don't own the road, so you have no right to put the cones and then harangue people if they move the cones and park there. because it's not reserved, because you don't own the road. So you cannot legally stop anybody parking outside your shop. And that's the problem. So and if the police have taken that attitude, then as well, then that's just ludicrous, because that's not the law. So anyway, Councillor Reardon.
Yeah, it's really unusual for the policewoman's behaviour, isn't it, rather than the perpetrator. Putting the incident aside, it was good to have, was it an inspector at the meeting? And I think we really should be pushing to these attendants more often, especially as we get. And it would be nice to see that they wanted to come when we're not giving them money as well.
No, welcome that, Councillor Reary, and I know Councillor Jarvis, the chair, so he's pushing, and he wants the police at every meeting. Becky, what do you want to say?
Sorry, Jack, just to add, so we will try but can't always promise to have the police at Safer Sub. But the next Safer Sub, we've got a police and crime commissioner attending, so all councillors are welcome to attend. It's a bit exciting.
So state where it turns up.
Positive attitude to this. I think it's brilliant.
Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. At the meeting, it was also discussed regarding the knife crime in schools and the headgear that was supposed to be going. And I was really disappointed that it hadn't had a chance to be used. And I was just wondering if it has now been used and utilised, because it's been held up at county. Is that still the case?
Unfortunately, county have decided not to renew the licence. So we're looking at alternative measures for our serious violence and movement.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll move it from the chair that it's correct. Seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour?
Coupled with actually doing.
Absolutely, with the caveats, yeah. Thank you. Item number 11 is the exclusion of the press to consider, in accordance with section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, whether it is in the public interest that the public and press be excluded from the meeting for the following item of business, on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by Schedule 2 to the Act. Moved, seconded by Councillor Ridley. All those in favour? Thank you. So